up and running. Yes, I can. Sound great. Hold on. I have to rename the show. There we go. Ready to go. All right. Hit that like, everybody. right, everybody, welcome to the show. Hold on one second. I'm going to bring it in. Let's see, 3. I got buttons on this? I think so. Hey, that one works. Look at that. Welcome to the show, everybody. It's mic's on. Everything's firing. In the background, waiting in the wings, I have our dear friend, Major Ojeda. There he is from Ojeda Live and from turnleftpack.org, who I just found out, by the way, that our dear friend, John Fugelsang, hallowed be his name, donated to turnleftpack.org, and that's a beautiful thing. It's nice to be in a group of people. Sorry, I've created an echo for you. I'll fix that. Boink, right there. It's nice to be in a crowd of people that know how to have each other's backs, especially when the fight is this important. Now, right out of the gate, let's, if I may, dear sir, there is so much to cover. But before the show started, I was mentioning to you. And hi, chat room. We'll be with you in just 1 second. You lovely folks, don't forget to share the show out, and super chats are always welcome, and blah, blah, blah. That Putin's having a bit of a morning. And I wanted to share this with you. Now, it's translated on the screen. Let's see if I can get it framed right so you can see it as well, because it's just so... when Putin is upset, things are right in the world. So I don't know how much, like the text is probably really small, so I'll read it out over. He goes, we will have to start with the events in the Kursk region. And now what people may not know is the Ukrainians have made giant advances really fucking quick in the Kursk region. And it seems largely due to the fact that they have F-16s now laying cover for their soldiers and the like. So they're able to make a push they were unable to make previous. Okay, I'm going to move you over. There you go, so you get a better shot of you. So this is I just want you to listen to the tone of his voice and the look on his face.
Начать придется с событий в Курской области. Как известно, киевский режим предпринял очередную...
As you know, the Kiev regime, and by the way, fuck this regime nonsense. He was elected. They use this is the same talking point the Republicans use.
Yep.
They call Biden, the Biden regime. They throw this word fucking around like regime as if because he's actually in a regime. He's actually manipulated the electorate to keep himself in power for a long time. He jockeyed for prime minister, president until the rules no longer applied, and then he just threw him out the fucking window. That's a regime. We vote for our people, win or lose. We've switched candidates right now. You can't even. That's one of the problems. Trump and his pals have lost the regime talking point because Kamala's going to be the nominee. So it's driving them crazy. But using the word regime towards democratically elected leadership is just is one of these, like, I know you are, but what am I? Flip-flop, I'm rubber ball, you're glue bullshit projection points. It drives me fucking nuts. So anyways, here he goes. As you know, the Kyiv regime has launched yet another large-scale provocation. Motherfucker, it's their city. Provocation? Fuck you. But another large-scale provocation. By the way, large-scale means they got their ass kicked last night, is what that means. That's all right.
Масштабную провокацию ведет
Provokatska, which is the word for provocation. We all learned something today. Provokatska. It sounds good. It sounds like the name of a Florida congressperson who oddly signs with Trump. This is Ilana Provokatska, and she of the great state of Florida. Anyways, it is conducting indiscriminate shooting of various types of weapons, including rocket weapons, at civilian buildings, residential buildings, and ambulances. Get the fuck out of here!
Did you invade to protect the people from the people that live? Get the hell out of here, man! Goodness.
Right. You invade a place, take over the civilian buildings, take over the residential buildings, and commandeer ambulances to ignore the locals and drive your soldiers around as troop transports, which is a violation of the Geneva Convention. It's against the laws of war. And then when they get hit, because Ukraine can see via satellite and all kinds of other shit that they're full of soldiers, not patients, and then they blow them up, and you're like, how dare they?
Oh,
like,
my
no
goodness,
wonder.
yeah.
Jesus,
they're attacking ambulances.
Yeah, right. No wonder this fucker had the Hamas guys at his, like, for the only, like, in-person visit he had with any world leaders for a while.
Избирательную стрельбу из разных видов оружия, в том числе ракетного, по гражданским зданиям, жилым домам, машинам скорой помощи. Сразу же после...
Immediately after our meeting, I will have a meeting with the heads of the security services of the Ministry of Defense and the general staff of the FSB, Federal Security Service. And by the way, look at his fucking face. Look at him, just side-eyeing the shit out of the FSB guys to his left who didn't see this coming, and every one of them just like filling their pants with soup right now. They're gonna have to throw those chairs out. Look at his fucking face. That guy's a murderer. He insists on personally pushing old ladies out of windows. That fucking economist that just got chucked out a window who's like 86 years old, I guarantee he called shotgun on that, or dibs, right? And now he's staring at you on the side of the table.
Yeah, you know those guys are absolutely shitting bricks right now.
Oh my God. Okay, here's the rest of it, then we'll talk.
После нашего совещания у меня будет встреча с руководителями силовых ведомств, Министерства обороны.
Look at their heads. Look, everybody's heads down. Everybody's just, oh, lots of things to do today. I've got stuff, excuse me. I'm just checking my calendar to see if I can clear it, lady. I have a meeting with Gravity at...
pick up a carton of eggs.
Right. On my way to the street. Look, it's so fucking telling, man.
Well,
Генеральным штабом ФСБ, имею в виду
I mean the border service of the Federal Security Service. And I will listen to another report from my colleagues on what is happening in the Kursk region. Like, you motherfuckers better give me some good news. Also, real quick, I know this is a total aside or whatever, but this is shit. This absolute shit. Why are these monitors that they're all watching not hanging from the ceiling like in a hockey rink so that they can all look slightly up and still see each other, as opposed to looking down on the floor at just 4 TVs in a square like a fucking bunch of assholes? Like, this is so lame. It is so like it's just so cheap looking comparatively. I kind of love it.
Yeah, that's no talk.
Right.
Конечное направление деятельности Федеральной службы безопасности. И заслушаю очередной доклад коллег по тому, что происходит в Курской области.
I don't like it. But I would like to say that as a result of my conversation with the acting governor of the Kursk region,
по итогам моего разговора с исполняющим обязанности,
who, it shall not surprise you, it doesn't look like he would bounce. I'm just saying. Nobody does.
Губернатора Курской области.
A number of civil authorities have been entrusted with providing the necessary assistance to the residents of the region and the government too. So he's talked to the governor that they installed about, like, don't worry, we'll take care of any civilians that were hurt. Because there fucking weren't any. Like, this is just one of those, like, pretend it's a natural disaster.
Поручение ряду гражданских.
By the way, for those at home, this is the equivalent of Trump chucking fucking paper towels at people after a hurricane.
Ведомств по оказанию необходимой помощи жителям области. И правительство тоже прошу заняться этим безотлагательно.
Yeah, so that's basically the bit of it, and holy shit. Okay, yeah.
In terms of Vladimir Putin.
Yeah.
60 days. There has only been 3 days that they did not lose over 1,000 troops. And on those 3 days, it was 980, 980, and 950. I mean, it could not be going any worse. In the United States of America, we can't even begin to fathom what it would be like to be told we lost over 1,000 troops yesterday.
1% of the deaths that they've had in that country was the point where if we cross this line, the entire United States will be in an uproar about being in Iraq and Afghanistan. And it was. The 5,000 mark was the absolute, the end of the end of the end of this bullshit.
Yeah,
amazing.
We wouldn't tolerate. We couldn't tolerate that. And I tell you, if you look at the equipment that they lose every single day, and I actually talk about this every single night on my live. I give about 30 seconds to the numbers, and it is literally they are losing a minimum of an entire battalion worth of soldiers and equipment every single day. And this has been going on for 2.5, going on 3 years now, and there's no letting up in sight. I mean, they're just getting their asses handed to them, and of course now we got F-16s that are now in the hands of the Ukrainians, and they're just smoking the Russians. They're just smoking, and there's nothing they can do.
It's a common mistake. I do it all the time. I start saying Russians and say Republicans all the time because there's so much fucking crossover, right?
Yeah, well, they both love Putin.
Yeah, oddly, it is. I gotta say, it is bizarre to me that how comfortable. One of the big pieces of news that came out about JD Vance, and I wanted to also, and by the way, hi everybody watching House Sparks Mornings, Megaworldwide, the major live streams every night at Ojeda Live. Please follow him. TurnLeftPack.org is the organization. We gotta. I really do feel like, and I've said this before, if every Democrat in the country votes, there are no red districts left. Okay, and there might be a couple in areas where there literally is no one. They will just assume that a county with 12 people in it and a bunch of land is red, and that's how the map will look. But it's not because of the volume of human beings and the votes that are there. So, JD Vance attacked Tim Walz's military record, and you know more about the advancement ladder. And people's positioning and that kind of stuff and what they do while they're in those positions than I would certainly. And it seems odd to me as a layman that JD Vance, being a combat reporter who did 6 months as a PR writer for the Marines in Iraq, has any stones to throw at all at Tim Walz, who is in the National Guard, and the like. Yes.
Let me tell you something. J.D. Vance is absolute garbage. And once again, I'm not throwing stones. Both of them have served. But they want to somehow throw and rock at Governor Walz and say that, he didn't serve in combat. First and foremost, in 2003, Governor Walz, I don't think he was governor back then, but he wasn't for sure. But Governor Walz was actually deployed to Italy in support of Operation Enduring Freedom. Let me tell you something. When you deploy, you don't have to put your foot on the soil of Afghanistan to deploy in support of Operation Enduring Freedom. Look at all of the people that we know that have been deployed and spent time in Kuwait. Kuwait wasn't no combat zone. Ain't nobody getting scuffed up in Kuwait. But these people say, hey, they're serving in Kuwait in support of OIF or OEF. And that's exactly what he did. And it bothers me that I've been arguing with people today because I got military people like, well, they say he abandoned his unit before they were deploying to Iraq. First and foremost, if he would have chosen to take the sergeant major's role, he wouldn't have went anyway because he would have had to have went straight to the Sergeant Major's Academy. I was actually in combat when my first sergeant come down on orders for the Sergeant Major's Academy, and he had to pack his shit and leave. And in the middle of a damn combat zone, I had to get another person to step up to the plate and serve as my first sergeant because that shit happens. And what he did was he chose to not go to the course, which is the year-long course, and he chose to get out, and he retired as a master sergeant. And let me tell you something. An E8 is a absolute phenomenal rank to hold. It's once again the second highest rank on the enlisted side. He's a successful leader / soldier. And once again, JD Vance served 3 years in the Marine Corps as a journalist. And I don't throw stones at him, but don't talk no shit. Don't try to talk no shit.
That's the weird part about it. Yeah, is that our side is not the one that is attacking him for being a combat reporter per se, and yet he feels no hesitation whatsoever for attacking somebody who has a higher rank than him, served longer than he did, is far older than he is, by the way, who when he was joining the military was 40-something anyways, would have, as far as deployment goes at that point, right? And so the idea, or I guess he would have been 38, somewhere around that zone, depending on when we're talking about deploying. So the idea that they would have gone, oh, take this guy and send him to the front line as opposed to the new guys that were going down there, and there's a higher ranking person where he would have been stationed, what he would have been doing. And never mind the fact that the fucking Minnesota National Guard, like every other National Guard group, does all kinds of shit when there's not a war. They, and a lot of dangerous shit, a lot of flood mitigation and fucking saving people and fires and all kinds of shit. Like the National Guard, as the Brits call it the Territorial Army, which it sounds slightly cooler because the National Guard sounds like you're trying to guard the nation from the inside. It's very much reminiscent of fear of Japanese kamikaze pilots coming across, right? That's the name kind of is reminiscent of, but it's really much more like a territorial army. It is fighting for the people on the land as opposed to outside the land. And most of the time you're not fighting a foreign force as a National Guard member. You're fighting the elements. You're fighting, in some cases there's, riots and other shit that got out of control. I suppose that would be the other thing or whatever, but it's all dangerous. And and when you take the oath, when you join, and obviously, if you're a Donald Trump type, you get special dispensations and the like, or say George W. Bush, you get special dispensations that can buy you a cush gig. No, there is nothing that points to the fact that social studies teacher Tim Walz was one of those people, right? He didn't know what would happen to him once he joined the National Guard. That's one of the greatest things about it. That's why it's such an honorable thing to do, is because you don't know where you're going to end up. And it might be combat, it might not, but you might actually find yourself, saving people from floods in boats that are a little rickety because they had to do it in a hurry and or you might be fighting a forest fire in another state because you're called over to do that and you're loaned by the governor of your state to do it. It's you give yourself to the service of your nation. That's why we honor the National Guard equally with the rest of the military. So the idea that like JD Vance can fucking piss on somebody that's his senior, that's a higher rank, that stayed in longer than he did, that was certainly didn't get an assignment like he did, it's just gross. It's fucking gross.
Yeah, JD Vance is just a friggin' jackaloon. I mean, it is what it is. And once again, it kills me when I see people want to throw stones. The guy did 24 years in the National Guard, and just like you said, floods and fires and things like that. Yes, security exercises, absolutely. We've got people in this country, governors that have sent their soldiers to the southern border. Believe it or not, all of Kosovo. All the troops that we still have in Kosovo are basically National Guard units that are doing rotations to try to keep, the peace. And then again, too, also, I'll tell you right now, if it wasn't for the National Guard, hell, we would have never got to come home from Iraq and Afghanistan. So, I give a big thumbs up to the National Guard. And it bothers me when I see these people talking all this garbage about a man who served 24 years, a man who also happens to be a teacher, a man who also happens to be a successful coach. A man that is absolutely doing amazing things. And if you look at the record of what he has done for Minnesota, I mean, you can't not look at that and go, wow, wouldn't that be great? Free college for every single person that goes to college, as long as it doesn't exceed $80,000. So the first $80,000 of college is free for you. I mean, there's a lot of things that he has done. 3 meal. Let me tell you something. I was a teacher for 4 years after I retired for the military. And I did 24 years too. And I remember, the first week that I was a teacher, and I don't know if I told you this story or not, but basically I'm in the cafeteria. I'm a JROTC instructor, so I've got my uniform on, and they kind of make us basically overwatch the lunchrooms because all the kids are too scared to get rowdy because they think we all got PTSD and shit, So we just stay there with that mean
Mr.
scowl.
Ojeda's gonna snap.
Yeah,
if you don't call him Major, right?
Yeah, we got that mean look on, and I will never forget watching the cafeteria cook, the main cook, walked outside into the cafeteria with this big metal pan that had about 100 corn dogs on it, and she set it down on the table. She set it down on the table. Hold on. She set it down on the table. And said 3 corn dogs. And I watched young girls jump over tables to grab a couple corn dogs and stick them in their their pocketbooks. And that's when I was like, what the hell did I just see? And they were like, those girls are taking those home so they can eat them later on because they ain't got no food at home. And I was like, oh my God. And then I sit and I think about how the free lunch program was so beneficial where I come from in southern West Virginia. I mean, and they do these programs through the summer too, because they know that those kids need to come here and get them a breakfast, and they get a bag with an apple, a sandwich, and a Capri Sun for lunch. But that's all they get. And I think about, my goodness gracious, kids that don't have the ability, that have to pay for lunch, how hard it has to be. And the free lunch programs are so important. And he is absolutely 100% to make that something that is nationwide. Nationwide. You got people like Sarah Huckabee Sanders and them signing laws that are freaking saying we don't want to instill socialism in these children, so we don't want to feed them. I think it's absolute garbage. And anybody who votes for people like that is part of the problem.
Well, I as somebody, I very distinctly remember Peaks Mill Elementary School. The cafeteria is basically in the basement, okay, because it's not a big space, and so you would go down 2 flights of stairs into the basement. By the way, the advanced the advanced student program that they had at my elementary school had 3 people in it, and 2 of them dropped out, and I was the only one left. And in that school, it's like, but you would get a ticket for lunch. So if your parents paid for your food, you got a white ticket. If you got if you got assistance, you got a blue ticket. So you'd have to walk up and fucking hand your blue ticket to the lunch lady so everybody could see that you had a blue ticket, to basically shame you for being poor. Now, in Frankfurt, that worked a lot better. In Peaks Mill, there were a lot of blue tickets. We were like the fucking blue ticket brigade, me and some of my friends. But my best friend and my next door neighbor, his dad was the chairman of the school board. Clearly, his kid had a white ticket. So even when we were hanging out, here I am with my best friend. We live right next door to each other. He's handing a white ticket. I'm handing a blue ticket. And there's this just kind of feeling that goes with it when you're 8, 9 years old. Now, I turned it into something. It made me, mad and gave me drive a little bit, whatever, which is what the Republicans think it will do for everybody. But that's because I was still getting the fucking food. The blue ticket, they tried to shame you with it, but the food was the same as the kid with the white ticket. That's what really made the difference. And they hated it. They tried every way they could to try and get rid of the program. And they couldn't do it, because there were too many kids in Kentucky that needed it. Yeah. And the idea that has to even be a thought. Look, they're in the care of the school while you're there. Your taxpayers pay for the school. They pay for the teachers' salaries. They pay to put air in the fucking basketballs. They tile the floors. They make sure the air conditioning works. There should be food provided. The kid can't go anywhere. They can't leave the campus. They're stuck there. provisions should be supplied, and it should be the highest quality. The environment. The only difference region to region should be, hey, we're in Wisconsin, our cheese is free. Like there's extra cheese because we're in Wisconsin, or because we are a ranching state, we have more beef and pork and whatever to draw from, and because it's right there, and we get donations from the thing towards the school program. You want to do that, fine, but the base level should be enough nutrients for every kid, healthy food, to get them through the day so that they can learn equally with everybody else. There is no fucking reason a kid should have their stomach growling in class because they're poor. It's dumb. It's the worst part of schools being paid for by local taxes. It is
and that's what bothers me, is that we've got so many people in this country that absolutely seem to not care at all about people that are in poverty. You know, I mean, how can a child really focus on their studies if all they're worried about is that at any second my stomach could growl so loud and it will be so embarrassing for all these kids, and they're going to turn, they're going to point, they're going to laugh.
Dude, it fucking happened to me. It happened to me. Look, there are pictures of me, and my parents tried, and there's a period where we were really broke for a big window. It was about 6 to 8 years of my childhood that were fucked up money-wise. And then my dad graduated finally from university, got his his architectural degree, and then he got a state job working for the state, and then he went into private practice for a little while, and his company went under because of the big recession that happened in the 70s, and then he had to go back to the government job working for the state of Kentucky, and then he was able to get a job working for, eventually, when he moved to Chicago, and that's why I moved up there with him, he got a job working for the company that did, like, their office was in Bannockburn, and they did shopping malls. They did, like, rehab shopping malls and that kind of stuff, or change them over when a store would buy something else. So, and I had a construction job working with my dad when I moved up there part of the time. But during that window, there were a couple times, like, we would get government food and that kind of stuff occasionally. And there was I very distinctly, one of the biggest memories I have as a kid is that there was no food in the house except a box of dry potato flakes, which you would make, just add water, and you would make mashed potatoes out of these flakes, right? And we'd run out of water because the city brings the water out and pours it in the cistern. And if you run out, you run out until the next month. So it was like the last 5 days of the month, and we'd used it showering or washing dishes or drinking it. And I was eating dry potato flakes out of this fucking box. And I went over to my next door neighbor's house, Kurt, and it's like I said, they did just fine. And they had a satellite dish at one point on the back of a fucking flatbed thing that one of those old-fashioned ones. And he was, I shit you not, he was a chubby dude. And so his mom had stopped buying ice cream because he would eat it all before they got home, because we were latchkey kids. So he was putting powdered sugar on lard and eating it with a spoon out of the fridge. He would put lard in the fridge to harden it for a little while, and then just sprinkle powdered sugar on it. And he was just eating giant spoonfuls of lard. And I'm sitting there watching, and I would never fucking in a million years do that. But I remember sitting there with just kind of aware, this fucker is eating lard right in front of me. After he's had the biggest breakfast I have ever seen in my fucking life. And it was like a fucking Little Rascals episode. You know, remember, the food they would make in Little Rascals, where they would make eggs and bacon, and then they would always make sandwiches, and I remember staring at this. I remember watching at the YMCA, watching newsreel kind of quality plays of, like, the Three Stooges. They would play, like, movies of Three Stooges, but from a projector. And these motherfuckers, when they would make a sandwich in those old movies, they would take out a piece of bread. They'd slice their own bread. The bread would be this fucking thick. And then they'd have a jar of mayonnaise or something. And they just sloughed it out there, and they'd go, brap, brap. And it would just, like they were painting a fucking house. Remember that? And I remember sitting there going, like, because I was like, that looks like that's the biggest fucking sandwich I've ever seen. And I would, I had so many of those moments growing up, right? And there's no reason for it. My mom was a nurse. My dad was a student. They were working their ass off. You know, and so to think that anybody would hold that like back from a kid,
And the thing is, you know, don't hold it against the children. You know,
right.
I got
it's
it.
not
You
their
know,
fucking fault.
you got some parents, you got some kids that have parents that don't give two shits.
Right.
You know, they don't care. They're just them themselves. You know, it's almost like, you know, you should have never been allowed to have a child in this current situation that you were in.
Right.
So let's not blame the children. Fault. Yeah, it's not the kids' fault. We should do everything in our power to make sure that, you know, they're good, they're taken care of. There's so many things that a lot of people don't realize that, like in Europe, is offered to everybody. I mean, free college, the food. You know, I mean, I tell people all the time, like, if you go to Europe, and if you go to Europe and you're going to McDonald's, you're wrong. You know, you can eat a lot better food over there. But the one thing about European restaurants like McDonald's and Burger King and those places, when you walk into those places, that burger that's in on the poster, that's the burger that you're going to get. You know, you walk into a Wendy's and you see a big, beautiful burger with a nice piece of lettuce and a big chunk of tomato and everything looks good. But then you get it and you open it up and it looks like somebody smuggled it through customs in their ass. You know, the whole burger looks wet. I mean, it's like, what? And then you realize that in this country, you know, if you look at the things on everything that we have and drink and eat, it'll have aspartame and all this other shit. Guess what? They don't allow that in Europe. They don't allow that shit in Europe. Their food is far superior than ours. What they do around here is it seems like, oh, we've got 50 gallons of pure poison. What are we going to be able to do with it? Well, if you dilute it with enough water, you can just dump it anywhere. And that's how it goes in America. But in Europe, it don't work like that.
Right. Somebody in the chat room just asked if my friend is still alive. He is not. He passed away 2 years ago. He was one of my dearest friends.
The dude was eating lard.
He's not. Yeah, he had health issues his whole life. And it, you know, and again, fasting can often be good for you. So I was accidentally healthier just because I was eating less shit overall. But there's some pictures of me that from when I was a kid that looked like I was found in a prison camp, and I was in sixth grade. I was 3'8" and I weighed 41 pounds. If that gives anybody any indication of what malnutrition does to somebody, my dad is 6'2". My mom is 5'7", 5'6". I should be taller. I'm 5'9". I should probably be 6 feet. But because of malnutrition and stuff at an early age, I just didn't have a growth spurt when I was supposed to, like a lot of kids I was around.
Too.
Right?
Me too.
Yeah, I should have been taller. That's all. By all measure.
I wrestled I started wrestling in junior high. I was in the 9th grade. I weighed 52 pounds. I'm just like you. You know, I mean, we didn't get that growth spurt when we were supposed to get that growth spurt. Now I weigh 210 friggin' pounds.
Right.
But I do go to the gym every single day. Make no mistake about that.
Well, now, you know, again, the availability of calories now these days is almost the inverse. It's just the quality of calories is the issue, just like you were talking about in Europe. And one more thing, real quick. I want to let's see if I can find this news story real quick. Whoops, hold on, this is the wrong one. I guess one with news. There we go. Sorry, there you go. There you go. Oh, sorry, this is the wrong one. I just this is a real quote, by the way. I wanted to show. Hold on, I'll hide this later. There was a couple of stories. One is this Ukrainian gymnast who Yaroslava Mahuchik. She said, by the way, she doesn't fall asleep when she in between things. She just closes her eyes. She has a camping blanket for cooling temperature when she's working out all this stuff. But she said in terms of like her, you know, her country, she's like keep fighting till the end was her quote the other day about the Ukrainians. And can you fucking imagine? Again, we're going to talk about people who are really going through some shit, who are really trying their hardest, and nobody needs to stick their fucking oar in the water and help the tide pull us the wrong way. right? Like nobody does. And Russia's another example. Is the Republicans and their fucking anti-school lunch shit is the same thing. Just if you're gonna put an oar in the water, help, right? And the fact that she's competing under the pressure of her entire country being attacked by a country, 6 times its fucking size. It's amazing watching the other gymnasts and the other people compete. And yes, if you're trying for your 9th gold medal or your 15th and you're trying to break a world's record and stuff, is the pressure very high? Of course it is. But it's always like that at the Olympics. Hers is like that, plus the fact that her country is currently being attacked. Her fellow Olympians, several of them, can't compete because they're on the front lines. And J.D. Vance is like, the text leak this morning from his buddy where he's just going, I wouldn't even take Ukraine's call. I wouldn't take their fucking phone call.
Yeah, because they're in Vladimir Putin's friggin' pockets is what this is. And once again, I don't care. The whole entire world begged Vladimir Putin, please do not invade the sovereign nation of Ukraine. And I'm going to tell you that all of these deaths, they're getting ready to break the 590,000 deaths. And at the end of the day, I look at that and I think, good Lord, what a travesty. I don't feel sorry for them. I do not feel sorry for them because they invaded that nation. And I don't know what it was. And I think it was the young old ladies that were throwing Molotov cocktails into the turrets of tanks as they drove by on the outskirts of Kyiv. I think that literally lit a fire in the hearts of Ukrainians, and now they are fighting. And let me tell you something. We are providing them with absolute spectacular training. We are providing them with others packages of equipment that they are absolutely smoking Russia with. Every couple weeks I'll do a full scale of the losses. You're talking about almost 25,000 wheeled vehicles destroyed, 9,000 tanks destroyed. You're talking almost 20,000 armored personnel carriers destroyed. The number of losses in equipment and soldiers that Russia is dealing with, to me, this is what a dictatorship is like. Because a dictator don't give 2 shits about what the people think, because it's the dictator that makes the decisions and it's how he feels. But I'm telling you that there has to come a time when the people of Russia realize that an entire generation of men and women have been sent to their death over this greedy bastard. I'm looking for a Ceausescu style situation where the people finally get pissed off and they start charging capitals, and that's it. I think that's going to have to be the end of this.
Well,
is when Putin gets struck in the streets.
One of the reasons why I don't suspect it'll happen, it'll be a lot quieter and a lot more, Rasputin-esque, is because of the Cold War. Because in Ceausescu's situation, or even Gaddafi or something like that, they got kind of shitty buildings. They got kind of shitty security. And if the guards leave, the doors are basically open and that kind of stuff. But the Kremlin is a Cold War bunker. The Kremlin itself is effectively a city. It is locked in there. They have it. How we always have tales of those like NORAD bunkers for the leadership of the United States, where they can go fly and live underground for 100 years. Like it's Dr. Strangelove. All those stories. The Kremlin is one of those fucking things. They didn't build it somewhere else. They didn't want to have to travel from one place to the other because they were, as paranoid as we were during the fucking Cold War. They were twice as paranoid. That's why almost all the accidental triggers during the Cold War happened from their side towards us, and they had to call us and go, that's not a real missile. Like we had one that went the other direction. But the Kremlin he could stay safely in there for a decade, probably never leave, right?
Yeah.
And people could lay siege to that fucking thing, and it's got tunnels and ways to get in and out. Now, so it will take one of his own buddies who's just tired of living in squalor in support of this lunatic to slit his throat, essentially. That really is it. It's and for all the dudes that during Trump, remember the stories about during Trump, there were a bunch of people who were dragged out of the room while Putin was having a meeting with a bag over their head? Remember that shit? There were like 3 stories of these guys, security guys, who he's having a meeting with his security detail, and they literally, guys walked in, threw a fucking bag over the guy's head, and dragged him out. And they were never seen again. That's because Trump was basically whispering, okay, it's this guy and this guy and this guy. We're getting our information from that guy. Pay up. That's what it was. I mean, I don't, like, it's so fucking obvious. And then, you know, you could tell just with him giggling with Lavrov in the Oval. It's good. That's how it's going to come. That when it comes, and it will come fairly swiftly, that's what it's going to look like in there, because it can only happen that way. Here's the other numbers. You were talking about this. We're almost at 600,000 this point. 1,230 dead or removed permanently from, because they don't treat anybody. Are you fucking crazy? They don't bring they're not going to take an amputee back to fucking Russia and parade him around in this situation. They leave them there. Jesus Christ. Have you, you've seen, I'm sure. Yeah.
The reason why they're not bringing the bodies back anymore is because they know that will be a red flag that will tell people maybe Vladimir Putin is not being upfront and honest with us about the numbers. You know,
right.
I mean, right now Russia has the capability to produce about 50 tanks a month. They're losing 50 tanks every 3-4 days. I mean, at the end of the day, they got 8,500 tanks have been destroyed. I mean, it could not be going any worse. And at the end of the day, a dictator doesn't give a shit about the people. A dictator will send human waves, just like they did in the Korean War. China will send human waves. North Korea will send human waves. And Vladimir Putin is literally sending human waves. You don't lose over 1,000 people a day and not be considered sending human waves. Right. I mean, it could not be going any worse for Russia. And at the end of the day, this doesn't end until he's gone. And this is who Donald Trump loves. This is who Donald Trump wants to be like. And once again, make no mistake about it, Donald Trump don't give a shit to send your sons and daughters in harm's way. Make no mistake about it, he'll never send his pieces of shit kids into harm's way.
He threatened his own kids with that he would disown them if they joined the military. Not if they signed up to go to Iraq or some shit. Just joined. Yeah. Just because that's what poor people do.
Yeah, Don Jr. actually at one time was really thinking about it. You know, it was like Don Jr. might actually turn out to be a pretty decent person, and that surely shit the bed.
Right. Yeah, he had one chance to basically be salvaged by going through the military and maybe learning some genuine ethics from some people who actually have them. And his dad would never let that happen. Again, even still, as a rich asshole who's connected, more than likely he would have gotten a George W. Bush kind of station, and and end up having being a pilot that has curious under the radar flights back and forth from countries that cocaine is their main export during an odd time. But whatever. That said, if you look at, I'm sure you do. I'm sure you've seen some of these Telegram channels that have like battle footage, uncensored battle footage from Russia. It is if they showed any Russian this before they went to the front line, they'd all just scatter and get shot in the back running away.
Yeah, it's atrocious. I mean, I'm telling you, the UAV fight, and oh, by the way, now we have introduced F-16s to the battlefield, which is going to be absolutely devastating for Russia. But I mean, the UAV fight alone just is absolutely just destroying. I mean, these guys, you got Russians that you can't hide. You can't hide in culverts. They'll fly a UAV right into that culvert and blow it up with you in it. I mean, they are swacking Russians left and right. And once again,
Russians are tracking down civilians with theirs and killing civilians. It's fucking brutal. I do want to share one thing. This is the drones don't just destroy. A lot of them are intel drones that what I'm talking about. There's not a lot I could share from the kind of channels I'm talking about, but I'll give you an example of something right here. This is, whoops, sorry, I keep jumping to the wrong one. This is footage of this is a soldier. In the bed of his truck are the bodies of dead Russians. It's a Z truck driving in territory they allegedly control. Let me show you what he does. That's a human body. That's a Russian soldier. Here's another one. They're in body bags. He's dumping them by the side of the road on his way out of town. He's just kicking them out. Exactly. Again, what mental state would you have to be in to even do something like that unless you were ordered to do it, right?
Oh yeah, I'm sure that was probably some type of a tactic to try to slow somebody else down that may be approaching them. But I mean, at the end of the day, UAVs were always about being able to give us eyes where we no longer, where we don't have eyes.
Yeah,
I will tell you that, in Vietnam, if you thought that the enemy was on the backside of that mountain, you had to pick up, get a squad ready and hump up that damn mountain, find them and fight them and kill them. But today it's not like that. Today we can be sitting here and we can say, okay, send a UAV up there and tell us if the enemy's on the other side. And if they are, then we can absolutely get the grids from where they're at and then call in daggone fire onto them. I mean, it has become phenomenal. But the Ukrainians and their ability to use them to attack, dropping grenades into turrets. And, when you drop a grenade into a T-90 tank that's worth, I don't know, what, $30-40 million?
Right.
And that grenade goes off. And when it goes off, it sets off all of the 155 rounds that are also in the bottom of that. And you lose $40 million worth of equipment and any troops that are inside there as well. Over a drone that, doesn't cost hardly anything,
Right. Here's a great example. This is the airfield that the Ukrainians hit with some drones. That's when you hit a fully gassed up airplane with ammunition and missiles attached that's sitting right next to the ammo. So it's just the pictures of what have come out of there are fucking brutal. Mm-hmm. Whoops, sorry. Whoops,
we're seeing they just don't have it.
No.
Their equipment is old. I mean, the mere fact that we saw immediately when they invaded Ukraine that they never ever established or ever had a preventive maintenance checks and services program. In the United States military, every single piece of equipment that we owned, I'm talking to your weapons, to your gas mask, everything has to be inspected every single week. And you go through a checklist, and if you find anything wrong, you write it over here, you submit it to the mechanics, or you submit it to your radio people, you submit it to your nuclear, biological, and chemical warfare people, and they give you those parts and they fix it, or they take your mask and they fix it themselves. But that's what we do. And every single piece of equipment that we have is required to be exercised. Even if we have to do a convoy where we just get all of the wheeled vehicles together and we're going to drive all the way around the base and then pull back in and park them in the motor pool just so we can exercise those tires. And Russia has nothing like that. And that's why as soon as they started invading, we watched their equipment fall apart. We watched the tread on their tires fall apart because they never had programs like this. And I got to sit here and think, how stupid do you have to be to where you literally have your entire military force and you have nothing to do any checks to make sure everything is capable of deploying? It's embarrassing.
It's, I love how you have the same problem I have. I think when you look at a problem in front of you caused in any particular circuit, whether it's political or military or mechanical, and you go, you think in terms of the actual fix, which is based on actual problems. Something is malfunctioning, therefore, if you just tell the right person, they will fix it because everybody in the chain of command gives a shit. Like it's almost like we fight with normalcy to try and understand, right? You know, we have because I can't contemplate this level of failure unless it's on purpose. And in the case of the Russian military, I've always said that one of the things there's like your current weapons, your mid-level, maybe you might need them, and your in case of emergency break glass kind of shit. And if you have somebody fucking around and selling stuff and selling parts and you know, like illegally selling ammunition or whatever, most of the time they're going to do it from the deep sixth stuff. And the first place they're going to go to is the shit nobody ever expects to use. So if you're running out of circuit boards, you're not going to pull them from the GPS that's in the Jeeps that you use right now in Georgia or Africa or Ukraine or any of that stuff, or even currently, right before the war. You're going to pull it from the stuff that's deep sixth. It's about, you know, a mile back from what you would actually use. You're like, we'll never get to that shit. It's too far down in the Pez dispenser. Or you're just going to steal it from the nukes, because you're never going to launch the fucking things. And if it looks like it can launch, it could, who gives a shit? We're never going to do that. That's just nuts. This shit's been sitting here forever. Nobody's going to use it. It's the highest quality chips we have in the whole fucking country. And if Iran wants something to guide their missiles that they're actually going to shoot, and they'll pay me $18 million a chip, who gives a shit? You know, and as long as the lights flash on the console back at home, who cares? That's exactly what fucking happened. And they, instead of putting new tires on the vehicles that they, you know, the troop carriers, they're like, we're never going to have this level of troops going any fucking where, right? So they just pulled them. They're just like, oh, I'll just sell the tires through my Chinese buddy or my guy in Kazakhstan, and he'll sell them to Iranian dudes who will drive around with them on their trucks, or we'll sell them to some African warlord, for 60 cents on the dollar, and nobody's going to check. And by the time we need them, I'm supposed to get new ones anyways, and well, I'll just tell everybody I threw those away. But then the war starts right in the middle of you. Oh, fuck. I just sold all the good stuff. We never changed the tires.
Yeah, over in Russia, what happens is the general officers are given a annual salary, a stipend, or whatever you want to call it, and that's what they're given that money to take care of their troops. So here, I'm going to give you a big bunch of money, and what you can do is you got to make sure that they have their weapons, you got to make sure they have their uniforms, you got to make sure they have their vehicles and all that stuff. And what happens is that the generals, are basically buying discount, everything discount. And then if they can give everybody weapons that don't cost as much as a really good weapon, well, the way they look at it is that's more money that goes into my pocket. And that's what's happening. And that's what's been happening for a long time. And that's why Russia is in such a horrible situation. And it's not going to get any better for them. I think that Ukraine...
Dude, welcome to the Chinese military.
Yeah.
Same shit.
They can sit and they can bitch about Ukraine invading into Russia. Good. I hope they go all the way. I hope they burn friggin' Moscow's ass to the damn ground. I mean, after what they have done to the Ukrainian people and the cities, they bombed hospitals, schools. I mean, at the end of the day, Russia needs to be held accountable for every loss of life. When this is over with, we're all going to be shocked when we finally get the numbers of the Ukrainians that have been killed in these mass graves because Vladimir Putin let go of friggin' rapists and murderers and gave them guns and said, go do what you guys want to do. There were some atrocities that were committed that's going to make him a war criminal for life.
Dude, this is even true. And by the way, I think Trae's showing up in the background. I'll bring him on in just 1 minute. Hey, Trae, we see you. And I want to remind everybody, turnleftpac.org is the Majors organization. Do everything you can to support the cause because, again, if every Democrat in this country votes, we win every time. Period. End of story. We outnumber everybody because the ideas are more popular. They really are. And so I want to thank you for being on here. I want to show you one last thing before I let you go, which is this is a picture of somewhere in the order of 40 Russian military personnel who surrendered to 5 Ukrainians. And the reason they did is because the 5 Ukrainians have a force multiplier of actual tactics, a support structure that actually gives a shit whether they live or die, food, ammo, surveillance drones, radar, functioning fucking communications, and that's what that gives you. That gives you a basically 5-to-1 advantage, a 1/5 advantage in this situation every goddamn time. And a lot of these guys are giving up because they don't have anything. They don't have, their guns are empty if they're not just a fucking wood cut out of a AK-47 in the first place. And they've got no food. They've got no provisions. If they're injured, they're fucked. They're just going to be left behind. It is brutal. I want to thank you so much for being on today, Major, especially talking about this stuff. If we had time, I would dig into, and in the future, we may have to talk to this as it goes forward, the Middle East kind of stuff, because I know you were stationed down there and you're more aware of this. Obviously, we're on the edge of some stuff, so the next time you're on, shit may or may not have happened. So we'll discuss in the present tense about that as it comes. Thank you so much, Major, and thank you for your service and for being an awesome overall dude, Major Ojeda. Everybody, thanks so much. Yep, absolutely. Cool. And so let me, I'm going to bring in Trae. Just give me 1 second as I do that, because he's waiting in the wings. And there we go, copying that. And there we go, yeah. Copy and paste. And by the way, hit the like, everybody. You're watching Housemarque's Mornings Mega Worldwide. Currently the greatest stream in existence. None can match it, and none ever will. I'm just warning you right out of the gate. And I think, see if I transition over, I should be able to hear him right out of the gate as well. How are you, Trae? Good to see you.
Hey, Hal. Yeah, I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And welcome to the show. I mean, I'm sorry it's on a slow news week and there hasn't been much happening or whatever. So, how you been?
I've been good, increasingly, better lately over the past few weeks. Like feeling just a growing sense of hope. Remember that hope that you used to have that, feeling that again. That's
right.
fun.
Remember that?
Optimism.
Remember that feeling? Yeah. Right.
It is weird. The vibes are pretty good. I don't know who these people are and what they've done with the Democratic Party, but feeling pretty good about it.
It's been like a major shift, not only in energy. I think a lot of people, the Veep stakes was, I think it was a good problem to have, but I think our biggest problem was we've got a lot of good contenders. We've got a lot of great people and a lot of people that will be great teed up. Right. Did you have a favorite going into it at all? Were you rooting for anybody in particular?
I've already gotten very, very on board with Tim Walz, but
Me too.
The guy I liked from the start, I liked Mark Kelly from Arizona because I'm
me too.
I just like, he's very red-blooded American man, but so is Tim Walz. But it was like, this guy was a combat veteran and an astronaut. It's like, who could possibly hate astronauts? But then in my head, I was like, well, if she does pick him, like, they'll find a way to hate astronauts.
Right.
You know what I mean? They'll be.
He hates America so much he left the Earth.
Exactly.
Right.
That's what I've been saying. Yeah, it's like, oh, well, you think she's better than Earth? Is that what he's too good for Earth? Okay.
Right.
But anyway, still, I liked him. I thought he brought a lot to the table. I still like Mark Kelly, but then, and I feel like Walz came in later in the process. He had that, he came up with the weird thing, and I put him on the map. And then I didn't know that much about him previously, and then looked into it, and I was like, oh, this guy rules. And I've gotten more and more into it. So, I'm all for the pick. But yeah, like you said, I think any of the ones that were like shortlisted that I heard, like, I think I would have been all right with, pretty much any of them.
Yeah. That kind of brings up the Veep stakes on the Republican side, which I gotta say looked like a shitstorm from the very beginning. There was a whole lot of no way, and then the rest of it seemed to be, well, that's a dumb idea, right?
Right. Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, that's what they're working with over there. I feel like, but yeah, but JD, I mean, I feel like even they are not that pumped about JD. I mean, I feel like there's been some buyer's remorse. Like no one's really
say it lightly, right?
Yeah, on board with him, and it's because he doesn't really bring anything additional to the table, and it's funny because he tries to proclaim being a hillbilly, a rural American, or whatever, but he's like an Ivy League Silicon Valley dude and guy liner and all this stuff, and then versus Tim Walz, who's like a turkey hunting military vet football coach, state
wins
fair
the
loving
sharpshooting
grandpa, right, and
right.
Just
wins the sharpshooting event, competition in the Congress every year, to the point where it was annoying people.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you know this, but my dad's a shooter, always has been. I've been a member of the National Muzzleloading Rifle Association since I was 8 years old. Nice. So we fire flintlocks and percussion shotguns and that kind of stuff, and old timey guns. So my dad competes shooting like shotguns from the 1800s, okay, that he has restored and that kind of stuff. And he literally has a shop where he repairs guitars. And the door on the shop is always, even when he tries to close it, it can't close because he hangs all of his gold medals from shooting on them, and it has pulled it off the hinges. Yeah, it literally, the weight of these, they're not real gold, obviously, but they, the weight of all these things just hanging there has made the door lean away where it won't shut properly. So I was good with Waltz. Yeah, right. It is. It's pretty good. I gotta say, the biggest shock on the Republican side was that Marco Rubio was even considering the little Marco, shit. It's never weird when a Republican comes crawling back to Trump, but it seems like it was just another opportunity for Trump to get him to debase himself. He was never going to be chosen. It was just like, watch me make this dude kiss my ass again.
Yeah, he does seem to love that. But it's like you said, I mean, I feel like so many they either came out the gate up Trump's ass or they've had to, capitulate at some point along the way. I mean, very famous like JD too, initially when he first hit the scene with that book or whatever, he was super anti-Trump and, called him America's Hitler and all of this stuff. And then, but, eventually they all realize like if you want to play in that particular playground post 2016, you got to kiss the ring, I guess, and they'll all, like you said, debase themselves gladly to do so. So it's kind of par for the course over there. I thought the funny was Kristi Noem, who was like desperately vying for it or whatever the whole time, and then just shooting herself in the foot and her dog in the head along the way, and,
right. Her dog got in the way while she was trying to shoot herself in the foot.
Right.
Yeah. I gotta say, she must be so thankful that RFK Jr. exists because besides the hold my bear jokes that flew right after his stuff, it seems like every time there's a Trump scandal in this particular run, he jumps in and tries to steal some of that. He even said in that bear story, like, it may be the redneck in me. And you're like, the redneck in you, motherfucker, you're a Kennedy. You're one step away from Camelot. You're not some fifth gen. You're not fucking John Kennedy from Louisiana, for fuck's sake. This shirt tail Kennedy that's not even really related. You're an actual fucking Kennedy, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, I mean, like you said, there's nothing further from any kind of redneckery in this country than
it's stunning.
The Kennedys,
falconing,
American dynasty.
Fucking,
yeah, right.
Falconing. Get the fuck out of here. So yeah, he said, she taught the dog story comes out, then that picture comes out of him eating dog in Korea and joking about it, and then this bear story seems to be even attached on top of that, like he's trying, if they're going to use it against me, I'm just going to use it as a flex, right? And then the Trump thing with the Epstein list coming out, he's on it. He's on the flight list as well. And then the way he responds to it is like, well, I was friends with Bill Cosby, and I had this guy come to my, Harvey Weinstein was a good guy. I had no idea. And you're like, oh, for fuck's sake, dude! Like, shut up.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's like I can't figure out if the timing of the brain worms thing was fortuitous, or if it would have been better at the after some of this stuff. Do you know what I mean? Like he sets it like, hey, I've got brain worms.
Save it till after the election, and then you can excuse yourself from winning and try again.
He had brain worms that whole time. I guess that does make sense. But yeah, no, I don't know. He's like a cartoon version of like a rich kid American royalty,
Right.
like frat boy maniac, and it's truly wild. And there was all this thing about like it seemed like at first the idea was supposed to be that he would like siphon votes away from Biden. They hoped, but now it really seems like he's pulling them away from Trump. So it's backfired. So now like they're like going out against Kennedy, even though he was like in the pocket for them to begin with. And the whole thing is just like a disaster class,
Well, and that's
wild.
why I think that you're right. I think that's why Trump was trying to bring him back into the fold, right? He was trying to like join up with us or whatever. He's on that fucking phone call with him. And then RFK's son posts the call that, and clearly not as, him trying to impress, voters or, but clearly an attempt to like undermine Trump and steal votes from him again, going, this guy's trying to kiss my ass. Obviously, I'm the better version of Trump at this point. If you don't like him, come on board the RFK train. And still Trump is, I guess he's trying to talk him off the ledge. It doesn't matter because you're right. He's not stealing votes from Biden. He never was. And he's certainly not going to steal any from, he's gone from 15% to 5% since Kamala has, become the nominee. Yeah.
Yeah. That number makes sense because I feel like at first, like, I don't know who could be left in RFK's camp except for like other actual insane people or whatever, you know what I mean? Like initially, I think there was people that might have, they're a little different, a little eccentric or whatever, but they, they didn't like Biden or Trump and they just liked the name Kennedy and whatever. But then at this point, after all the brain worms and bear carcasses and dog eating and all that stuff, it's like, I mean, who does he have left except for like,
well, yeah, it's hard to say. I would also say that if it wasn't for brainworms, we wouldn't have the latest Joe Rogan stand-up special on Netflix. Because, again, if ivermectin helped you when you had COVID, it's because you had worms. That's what it's for. And sometimes having worms and COVID could put you in the hospital, whereas otherwise you might have been able to withstand one or the other. So if ivermectin kept you out of the hospital, it's because it killed your fucking worms. And so Joe Rogan had worms, clearly. I guess I don't want to break HIPAA laws, but it's obvious, I think.
Well, he eats a lot of wild game and stuff, right? You can.
That's right.
You can, if you don't cook that right, you can get worms from it. Actually, bear meat, I know. If you don't, you got to cook it. Got to cook it to death, or else you get get worms all up.
Well, and I'm sure he's trying to reshoot scenes from The Revenant, eating a chunk of liver out of it to show off to his friends, like biting elk liver raw and for shits and giggles, and going, oh, that feels a little, I don't know, might need to, is there a, excuse me, I'm gonna go behind a tree. The other thing I guess that we take as an example, and I'll see if I can share this image with you here, is this constant bit of love. This is Donald Trump's Truth Social.
Right.
Yes. The stock is at $26 right now. After starting at 70, it's down 4%. The market, if you'll recall, was supposed to cadaver and drive everybody out of business. And it recovered quite nicely. Thank you very much. In the last 24 hours, Truth Social didn't rebound. I don't know why. Are you gonna? I'm curious. I plan on live streaming on it as soon as the service is available. Are you gonna? You think you'll find your way to?
I don't know. I don't even know what they're doing over there other than Trump truthing from his toilet every morning. I feel like the only truths I ever see are the ones that Trump does because he, isn't on Twitter anymore. But yeah, I know they had like millions of dollars in expenditures and like $700,000 in revenue or something like that when their IPO happened, and it was so clearly just like a cash grab or whatnot. And then I know that some of the proponents of it act like something shady is going on, like driving down the value of it or something. And it's like, what about it makes any kind of actual business sense? A lot of these like huge tech companies and stuff that, have massive amounts of users and things like that are still not technically profitable or take years and years to be profitable. You know what I mean? And so one
look
like
at Snapchat.
That, right?
Snapchat, or even something like Vine, which is there was Vine, there's Snapchat, and then there's TikTok. And TikTok just had Chinese government backing, so it didn't have to turn a profit. So it could automatically elbow its way past everybody else. That's how it happened. There's no question. They were able to buy their way with fake users to the top of the app charts and muscle past everybody. That's just how they did it. Snapchat has been busting its ass. American company, run out of Venice, California, not even up in Silicon Valley. Busting their ass trying to keep that thing profitable and barely skimming by. Barely, right? And what is Trump, what is the truth sinkhole, much less the Trump media and technology group, but a money laundering exercise?
Right, yeah. I mean, it just seems like another one of his scams that he's always coming up with to just like defraud the rubes out of whatever money you could get from them. And, they'll end up not blaming him for it anyway. And again, like I said, they'll blame whatever outside forces that they think are like torpedoing the stock. But yeah, Monday morning you wake up and it's like, might as well be Black Monday on Twitter or X or whatever. They're all like, chicken littling all over the place. It's like, they were just so, it's funny how they're always like, they're so excited when they even think anything bad is happening or about to happen.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, because Biden is still the president and they're running against that administration, and Kamala and everything. So it's like, they love it when bad shit happens to people or to this
they're
country.
Celebrating the demise of,
of
the country. Right.
Which is fine. I feel like that doesn't, happen in reverse. Bad things are still bad, right? I like it if something bad happens to like the Trump-Vance campaign, that's great. But like, the country, though, that we all live in, I'm not going to be popping bottles if it seems to be going off a cliff, and they will gladly do that as long as Democrats are in charge at the time.
Yeah, I don't root for hurricanes just because Mar-a-Lago is in Florida.
Exactly. Right.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, and that seems odd to me. Like, one of my favorite pastimes these days, and if you haven't tried it, I recommend it. It's my current drug of choice, is watching Maria Bartiromo every time something good happens to the economy. And just like watching her face melt in this.
Right.
And especially when she's got Trump on as a guest in the next hour.
Uh-huh.
Right? Yeah. It's just...
Yeah, I'm all about Schadenfreude too. Don't get me wrong. I only ever see Maria Bartiromo clips when they are, foisted upon me by social media or whatever. But yeah, it's pretty good whenever she's mad about stuff. I like when they get upset. They've been upset a lot lately. It was funny to me how much that weird thing got to them. Being called weird. It's like so simple or whatever, but it's like their whole identity is tied up in being they are what is normal, right? And everything else, any kind of other, that's weird and that's gross and that shouldn't be, right? There's only one way to really be a real person, a normal person, is to be a straight white Christian conservative or whatever. That's like their whole thing. So, turning around on them and pointing out, they're like, no, actually, you guys are weird. Just kind of made their heads explode. It's also funny too. They always talk about like all the trash they talk, all the names they'll call someone a pedophile literally just for being a liberal, even like a moderate liberal. They'll just say you're a pedophile, groomer, cook, snowflake, whatever. You're like, you're kind of weird. And you're like, oh, really? Name calling? Okay. It's just It's been pretty delicious.
Well, yeah. One of the I guess we obviously have been dealing with for quite some time that any attack that they throw is a projection.
Oh yeah,
and that any attack on them, they will preemptively, if they can, if they know it's coming, if they know they've got a weakness, they will preemptively call someone that thing, so it just looks like a war of words. It's a way of watering down the attacks themselves. You know what I mean? If you know a news story is coming out about one of your campaign people being a pedophile or something like that, then calling every Democrat a pedophile just kind of blunts that attack, because it sounds like they're just yelling it back at you and they're the ones doing the rubber ball glue attack, right? The issue that I think they're running into is that everything that they have been touting for a long time, and this is going to be the hang. There's a couple of things. One, the freedom story, where Harris is taking back the word freedom, which I've said for a long time. We need to take back the American flag and freedom, and the strength of liberal openness you know, as opposed to the hyper-categorization. I would say on the far left, there is a hyper-categorization that is equally as pernicious and violent as the hyper-categorization on the right, bifurcating everybody into a smaller and smaller slice of definition by a series of labels until they are basically alone in their individuality because of the stack of whatever they are. And the variance of those things is just as bad as you know, the marges of the world saying there's man and there's woman, that's it, you know.
Right.
It's just as bad. Whereas I think the Walls mind your own damn business part really has legs.
I agree completely. It just seems like the type of thing they couldn't argue. I mean, again, then that supposed to be their whole part of their whole thing, you know, the party of small government and like personal liberty and freedom and all that, you know, you should, just framing it that way. It's one of those things. It's like, as soon as he said it, it's like, wait, where has that been? You know, like we should have been
that was my reaction too.
It's right. Yeah. It's
I know.
Exactly. Cause everything about them says that they should be the type of people to agree to mind your own business, except we all know that they don't. They will, as long as they think that you're on the same team that they are, right? And hell, even then, some of them will, you know, be peeking through the blinds or whatnot. But they, you know, they're the party of getting all up in everybody else's business as often as possible, but pointing out that that's like fundamentally un-American in a lot of ways. I think, like you said, I agree. I think it's got got serious legs.
As a Southerner, as a fellow Southerner and a small town boy, you'll know that a lot of the mythology around the South that I grew up around, which was that everybody knows everybody, is just code for everybody's up and everybody else's shit. There's a lot of like church pew whispering and stuff like that.
My town used to like pride itself on it. Like I remember my mom having a T-shirt. So I'm from a town called Salina, Tennessee, and it's wild that there even are T-shirts for Salina, Tennessee. There probably aren't anymore. It's a tiny, tiny town. But I remember my mom's friend. I could still see it in my head. A T-shirt, and it had these two ladies at like the beauty shop, like in chairs beside each other, like whispering to each other. And it said, Salina, there's not much to see, but what you hear makes up for it. Right. And it's like, the whole point of it is like, that's what we do here is gossip. Like we gossip all the time.
We talk each other. Right.
And I feel like the first part of it kind of explains the second part, sort of. Is there's not much to see. I think in small towns, it's like, you know, there's oftentimes not a whole lot going on, and everybody does know everybody else, and they just end up all in each other's shit all the time. And obviously rumors get started, shit that isn't true. I mean, people can, you know, get really torn apart by that stuff. But yeah, it's definitely woven
the
into
Salem witch trials did not happen in a big city.
Exactly.
You know, and I remember there was a similar cartoon in, I think it was the Louisville Journal, it might have been the Lexington paper at one point. I remember very distinctly when I was a kid. This like two ladies at a bar with the like hair warmers over their heads and that kind of stuff, and they had like masking stuff on or whatever because they were at the beauty parlor, and one of them was leaning over going, I heard Betty's having an affair, and the other woman goes, I'm Betty. You know, right. And it was just it was so indicative of how like shit talking is an industry there. So there were 3 points I saw in his speech that I thought really stood out. Obviously the couch joke.
Yeah. Love
like
it.
The fact that he went there and then went, see what I did there. So he wasn't even leaving it up to being ambiguous. That's you know,
right. But it does also, it like works really well because like just get off the couch. Like it's a nice double entendre because that's a thing people say. You know what I mean? Like if you're going to train for whatever, it's like, you know, well, if he get up off the couch, then, you know, he might have a shot at like, that's a real phrase. So the fact, I don't know. I just thought it was like actually pretty deftly done as a joke.
Oh my God.
You don't see that a lot from politicians, I feel like, you know.
No, not at all. As Bill Burr would say, that joke had zero fat. Right.
Yeah.
That was sliced really thin. And perfectly. The other thing he said was the way he's languaging Trump, I thought was kind of brilliant. And the one big thing was where he said he froze during COVID. Not failed, not that he ignored the warnings of the experts, but he froze. Which, I mean, on a political level, saying somebody froze in the middle of a crisis, that's pretty bad. But you know Trump if he hears that, and he most certainly did, it drives him fucking crazy.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. There was a lot of things about that rally that you have to think if Trump was watching, and we all probably assume that he was, had to be driving him insane. You know what I mean? Like the turnout, the numbers, all of that, a lot of the it all just had to be driving him up the wall, which is, we were talking about Schadenfreude earlier. It's nice to think about.
Well, it's also, is that the key? Because I've been mocking him for a long time. So have you.
Yeah.
And I happen to think that is the only way to handle this motherfucker.
Right. Yeah. No, I agree. Yes. I mean, that's, I think
he has no shame, but he can be embarrassed.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, exactly. What was the third thing? I feel like you said two of your three things.
So, froze, the couch joke, and then this, I guess, hold on, I'm gonna see if I could pull up the clip of it, but the overall, him bringing the whole, they're creepy and weird, that he went with creepy, and he didn't just say weird. He brought the creepy part into it, which, again, with Trump, he's a fucking creep on top of, and that's the hard part. Do you ever find when you're making jokes about the dude that you're also in the back of your head, it's kind of like making, and people will shit themselves about this, but Hitler jokes. Like Hitler, on top of being kind of a meme of evil, was actually evil. And so, if
you mean the line between we want to make fun of them, and we should make fun of them, and then versus no, these people should be taken seriously. Yeah, I think about that type of thing all the time. Maybe it's just because I'm a comedian or whatever, but I always try to justify in my head and make the case of, like you said earlier, it's no, this is the best way to approach these people. I think, I get it. It seems like not taking them seriously, but this is the best form of attack against them, in my opinion. This is the type of thing that drives them most crazy. So that's why I think that it's justifiable, and an all right thing to do. Because I do think about that a lot. It's because not just with Trump, but with a lot of things, on the right. It's wrote a spec script about the Proud Boys, sort of about the Proud Boys, making fun of the Proud Boys, and that was the main thing in my head the whole time. You know what I mean? It's right. Don't want to seem like you're not taking them seriously, but we're also trying to ridicule the shit out of them. And how do you do that? But I think it's okay because I think I feel like I can make an argument for it. So
well, that's I've always said, one is whatever weapon works best in the situation, the right tool for the job, right? If it's a serious job, you need a serious tool, and in this particular instance, Donald Trump is incapable of feeling shame. He has no shame whatsoever. He is a shameless person. That is one of his indicative things. The irony that they want to put the 10 Commandments in front of fucking schools when adultery is on there and coveting is basically his reason for living. He is a covetous motherfucker. It is, envy is, that guy's got a car. I'd love to have a car like that. Covet is, I want that guy's fucking car. And that is Trump in a nutshell, right?
Yeah.
And so he is absolutely incapable of feeling shame. He's a shameless person, but so easily embarrassed. He is delicate as shit. And that's why he said recently, I don't like being laughed at. And I felt vindicated, and I'm sure you did too. When he said that out loud, I was like, we're getting to him.
Yeah. Well, you could tell he's thin skinned. So many of them are so clearly thin skinned. It gets, like you said, every accusation is an admission. Everything is projection. They talk, we are overly sensitive, thin skinned snowflakes, right? Who get easily offended and can't handle a joke and want to cancel everything. But
that's right.
Everything that I've seen be attempted to be canceled or boycotted in the past 2 years has been them getting pissed off at something, that offended them. That was the tiniest thing. No one's more easily offended than an American Christian conservative, or a Trump voter. So it really is all just projection. I'm sure, people on the internet say, the joke is that GOP stands for gaslight, obstruct, project. And I feel like that's, pretty accurate.
Yeah, it is definitely, I guess once the problem with that game is that once it's up, it's up. Once people know your tell, it's over. And I feel like in 2016, trolling on the internet had a major impact on things because I think people were more sensitive. I find myself when I get mad about something somebody says at me, it's not because I'm taking it personally. It's because I know who they're attacking, and I get pissed on behalf of the person that they're attacking. Like I was on Queer as Folk. People will do anti-gay slurs with me. It's not. I'm as a straight guy. That's not going to impact my relationships, my sense of self, whatever. But it pisses me off that they're attacking those people. That's what would make me angry about it. But giving them that anger, we have all, I think, learned is exactly what they're seeking. They don't give a shit why you're mad, or if what they're saying is even true or right. It's upset is the purpose of the whole thing. But now I don't know that works anymore. I think we've all got a good sense of humor about it, and that's what Walls and Harris have finally tapped into. I think, in the Dark Brandon stuff, I think was the beginning of that.
Yeah, I don't know if it's because if it's just, I mean, I agree with you. It does feel, there was a point in time where a lot of those criticisms had like some kind of weight to it, were about, the left being overly sensitive about, I mean, as a comedian, I remember there would be times where some things would come up or whatever. And in my head, I would be like, really? I mean, if it's a joke and if it's funny, if it's got the right context or intent, not, you can't just give a blanket ban of talking about all these, I thought that sort of thing was ridiculous. And I feel like that did crop up there for a while, but I feel like it's been gone for quite a while now too. And I think maybe it's because of just the context of everything else that's happened in the world. There's like way more things.
Bigger fish to fry.
Right. Exactly. Pretty much just that. Or it's like you said, it just, I don't know, it just like wore off eventually or whatever. But that's what I'm saying. I feel like I don't hear a lot of that type of, particular, culture warring going on from the left anymore. It's like I said, it still exists all the time, but it's usually them doing it. It's them, trying to cancel
that's
Bud
the ironic part is that
whatever, whatever.
Yeah, or like just everything anything that doesn't vote Trump is woke now. Like that woke is they've turned woke into a word it never was.
That's true.
I think the only thing, as a comedian, I'm sure you know about this, the only thing that's even close to it has been the Tenacious D stuff that happened. I don't know if you heard what the line was, but
Kyle Gass. And
yeah. So Kyle said, for people that don't know, they were doing a show in Australia, and it was Kyle's birthday, I think. And then there was they had this giant robot on stage or something that appears as part of the show, or the devil. It's what, like, for, and you have asked for 3 wishes or whatever. And he said, next time, don't miss Trump or something like that. And
and it was like the night of the shooting or the next day, with one of the two.
Right.
Like the shooting had like just happened. And they asked him what his birthday wish was. And he said, don't miss Trump next time. That's what he said.
Yeah. And so that canceled the tour right away. And Jack's dealing with the blowback about whether he goes out with Kyle again. Kyle apologized and tried to clean it up. And then he turned and said, nah, fuck it. It was just a joke. So we're moving forward and pretending. We'll see what they end up doing. I got to say, I don't make jokes like that on purpose. I specifically, I'm sure there's, as a comedian, you've had jokes come to your mind because of the background of material and experience and the people that you like in comedy over the years, that a joke will appear in your head because of all that soup in your head creating jokes all the time, and you'll go, nah, pass.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, but I don't think, obviously Tenacious D, they're hilarious. Kyle's been around the game for a long time. I don't feel like he really thought that whole thing through that much. I think he's just like, it just sort of came off the cuff and he went, I guarantee in his mind, he never thought in a million years it would turn into what it did. I mean, I thought that I didn't think the reaction was appropriate personally. It's like to cancel the whole tour and basically break them up, at least for now. And it's like, I think whatever, they'll let shit blow over and they'll get back to doing their thing like eventually, and it'll probably be fine. But I just didn't even think, even that initial response was warranted, because again,
agreed. I got to say, I'm always pissed off when people can't lie well and or cover their ass when they talk for a living. And one of the things, if he'd have just waited 48 hours and gone, what? And people go, oh, they think you meant this, and go, oh, I was basically making the point that the guy who tried to shoot him was Satan. And then it would have evaporated.
Yeah.
Right. That the joke about, again, I believe you can joke about anything. It's the context by which you put those jokes and the ethic from which you are joking about it. It is not the topic that is off limits. And I find a lot of comics that bitch about being canceled or being, being booed by the left or some shit. I gotta say, it's not so much that they're going on. They're talking about topics that are off, that are not allowed, but just that they don't really have any jokes. There's not enough jokes in it. They just think they can kind of, what's the deal with trans athletes kind of attitude. They think they can Seinfeld their way through a very heavy topic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I mean, yeah, I agree. I mean, I feel like also there's been tons of comedians over the past few years that they'll post clips to their social media with a caption that says something like, if this doesn't get me canceled, nothing will, right? Like that type of thing, or like cancel this, everybody, like that type of thing. And it's like they so clearly are desperate to be canceled.
Jesus,
because a lot of
Ricky Gervais's last special was just like, honest to God, that felt like the entire marketing campaign for the fucking thing.
Yeah, because it's like, being canceled is very, very lucrative, apparently, in the comedy world. A lot of times, a lot of the people that have talked so much about being canceled have done so in like $20 million Netflix specials and, sell out arenas and stuff like that. And I feel like other comics have seen that and be like, oh, I want to be canceled too. There's a lot of money in being canceled. So, yeah, the whole thing is pretty disingenuous to me. But I do agree with what you said too, though. A lot of times, and I'm sure there's exceptions to that, but yes, a lot of the times it's like, for me as a comedian, it's like, no, it's not that. I don't care that you're just talking about that thing. Like, that just wasn't like funny. There wasn't even really a joke there. You're just so like, that's my issue with it. Or it's also like, if you've gone on and on about the same thing for forever and ever, it's also just gets a little boring, I feel like. And yeah, it's like, no, there's like genuine, comedic critiques here. It's not just the subject matter that's putting people off.
And by the way, you're in Dallas this weekend.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I am.
And Des Moines, Iowa. After that, so are you?
Yeah.
That's the August 22nd. You're in Des Moines. So are you doing anything during the convention, or are you covering it, live streaming it, doing bits about it, or any of that stuff? Or you just have that weekend off? Thank God, because you're
I don't have
your ass off.
What are the exact dates of the convention again? If you could tell me.
16th, 17th, 18th, 19th, around there, I think. It's that weekend.
So, okay. Then, I'll be around for most of that, at home. So, I mean, I'll probably, follow it in some way. I'm sure I'll make one of my, like, videos about it, or I'll probably, I'll have some social media stuff. I'm not doing anything, like, big. I'm not planning, like, hours-long live streams or anything for that.
Gotcha. Yeah, it'll be that. There's like everybody wants to tack on, after the RNC especially. I think there's going to be so much, sidecar programming on it or whatever. But I just noticed that was a gap in your whole. By the way, TraeCrowder.com, TRAE Crowder.com for the tour dates is a huge list of them there. He's coming to a town near you, probably just one night only, ladies. So dress accordingly. But
some of them are weekends, some of them are one nighters. It just depends. But I'm trying to go all over the place. So check it out.
Yeah, it's wise. And he has a book called Around Here and Over Yonder that you can pick up on Amazon. Easy to find and read. As a comedian, I'm doing, we're on the Sexy Liberal tour, and I do also, I do my, I do Flappers every month. I do an hour of improv stand up where I don't write for it at all. I just do stand up. But it's
saw it. I did. Yeah. That's where we met. I did that show with you once. Yeah, right.
That's right.
It was highly great. Impressive. I sat there and watched you do the whole thing. You told me in the green room that's what you do. And I was like, what? Really? So then I sat out there and watched, and I was like, damn, this is. I like talked to my comedian friends about it after that. I was like, you know what House Sparks does? And because I mean, I'm just not that type of, I try to bring something that I've, thought about to some extent. But obviously, if I'm on stage and something happens, I'll riff on it or whatever. Or if there's a fucking heckler or that type of thing, whatever. But like generally speaking, I try to bring something to the stage. Yeah, right.
Build an act, right.
Just go up there and then, but just walk, especially doing an hour, not thinking about anything beforehand is crazy to me. But again, I've seen you do it. And it was good.
Well,
like you felt
I have
like
been
you
called
didn't
crazy.
Get lost the whole time, like you, there was some
held
stuff
it together.
Came out that I was like, I was sitting back there like, that's really not, he just came up with that. I remember you had something about like, you think if hell is real, you're like, I think we get used to it eventually,
Yes, right.
And I was like, I was surprised. I was like, that's great. Like it literally just came out of nowhere. But anyway, yeah.
Yeah.
Didn't mean
So
to interrupt you.
No, not at all. But I do that because I've been touring since I was 15 years old. So after a while, you've got to narrow the tightrope a little bit. So you have to get that energy back to make sure that you're excited about the idea of doing it. You don't want to bore yourself like they're doing. That's kind of the point, is that
Right.
like a lot of these guys are doing the same shit over and over again, even if they're doing new jokes about the same topic. It seems weird, and most of them are.
Right.
Like that's what the Rogan bit was like, the Ricky Gervais special with roid rage added. You know, like, and whiny roid rage at that. They all feel like open micers to me. They all feel like open micers going, if I'm edgy enough, then I'll muscle my way to the front of the line. Not because of jokes, but because I'll say the shit and people go, oh my God. They'd rather get like the damn, gif than actually get a laugh.
Yeah, I mean, I guess there's always been, an edgelord contingent in comedy. I feel like maybe not literally always, but for a long, long time now there has been, and it's and it's like you said, it's like there have been people who have pulled that off incredibly, and it can be done. But yes, a lot of people feel like they take the wrong message or lesson away from that, or something, like you said, that it's just that the important part is the shocking part, right, instead of like the funny part, when in fact it's people are impressed when you can take something shocking and make it like funny to the point that they can't help but laugh at it, even though they may not want to. And like if you could do that, that's what's good. But just saying crazily shocking things and then tacking on some half-ass punchline to it, when people don't like it, it's not because they can't believe you had the gall to say that. It's because it just wasn't that
mean-spirited bullshit, right?
I mean, I remember when I was coming up in Knoxville like 15 years ago, there were so many guys like that who were also doing open mics who were like, it used to drive me crazy. And I would like tell them back then, like they'd do that type of thing and they would be, and they'd blame it on the audience. They'd have this whole attitude like, oh, they just couldn't handle it or whatever. And I'd be like, no, buddy. No. It's like, look, like, I can handle it. I promise you I can handle it. It just wasn't funny. Like, it just wasn't that good. Like, they didn't laugh because it wasn't that good. That's why. Right. But a lot of these people that are huge, they are, I mean, the thing is, they are getting, a lot of them have built a following of people that kind of feel the same way about a lot of that stuff, I think. So whenever they do it, their crowd, digs it. They get like a good response back or whatever. And so it kind of, I don't know, makes it even easier to get a little lost, I guess, down that particular rabbit hole.
Well, I think a lot of guys for a long time were trying to be Bill Hicks or George Carlin. Yes, usually it was in that order. The guys who were trying to be George Carlin then tried to be Bill Hicks, then tried to be Doug Stanhope. That's basically the dovetail of it. And I would argue that that Rogan is a Stanhope acolyte. Like he looks at Stanhope and goes, I wish I was doing that guy's act. But he doesn't have the writing chops and the kind of like nihilistic self-destruction that goes part and parcel with the kind of jokes that Stanhope tells. And it's why he can craft jokes like that are funny, that are about awful shit. Like Stanhope's mom died of cancer, but she died at home and they did assisted suicide. They helped her kill herself. Him and his girlfriend, and they threw a party and gave her a bunch of drugs, like prescription meds, and just let her die in the other room. And they kept coming back to visit her, and she was still hanging on. And like, it's a great story. It's fucking terrible, but it's true. And that's the problem with everybody else. Ricky Gervais doesn't have any fucking problems. Joe Rogan doesn't know what it's like to look at a menu and go, well, can't have that. You know what I mean? He never will again. He never will again. Joe Rogan will never look at a menu and not be able to afford everything on it the rest of his fucking life. And same thing with Ricky Gervais. Stanhope might, because he's a workhorse. He's got to show up for his job. And so I think his stuff is infused with that. I think as a comedian, you have to live life. You can't be an elite comedian. It doesn't work. Because you...
I feel like Another version of that's happened a whole lot over the years that is like the more common trap that they fall comedians get massively huge. Their comedy gets worse because all their jokes become about like how famous they are and how rich they are and that type of, because that's
Right.
like, you write what you write what your life is.
They-
You can't help that, but their life is this like Hollywood bubble,
Right.
utopian dream life, and then they do specials about that, and it's just not as good anymore as the stuff that made them huge when they were writing about being a regular person or struggling or whatnot. But and then now
Right.
you've got these other guys that are massive that the same thing applies to, but instead of talking about that stuff, they're just like picking things to bitch about or something.
Right. Well, they're watching. You can tell they're watching the same Twitter videos everybody else is watching.
Mm-hmm.
That's the one thing they do share in common is they're at home on their fucking phone thinking Twitter is a window.
Right.
Right. They think it's and so I've seen them, like comedians do bits about videos that weren't that popular, but that I've seen, and I'm sure you've seen about any number of things from libs of TikTok stuff that was posted or whatever that they all fixated on, that Ben Shapiro did a video on. And I'm like, oh, I know where he saw that. I know the Ben Shapiro video where he saw the link to that video and then went and watched it. I can tell from how he's talking about it. Mm-hmm. But it's the problem is you can do that, and then you can go out into the real world and have real interactions with people, and that will temper your take on that video. They don't have that. None of that shit is happening.
Right.
They're never going to have that moment where they're actually among normal fucking people. I'm just, again, there's that part of the comedy world drives me nuts because it has this. I've seen edgelords all my fucking life, and there are 3 of them that have made it. Carlin effectively became one late in life, inspired Hicks to start as one and finish as one, and Stanhope built his career on it. Although, I gotta say, I did shows with him in London, and I saw him in the middle of the day drinking tea and reading a book in the middle of in the sunshine, and I was like, "You lying piece of shit! You fucking." You're telling me that your life is a grind and that the world is worthless and done. I'm like, you're drinking tea and reading a book in England in the middle of the fucking day. Shouldn't you be at home putting, a tinfoil on your hotel windows, you creep?
Right.
And,
yeah. Well, it's all right. Maybe he'll be with us a little longer that way. You know what I mean?
I think that's exactly what happened. I think if half of what he said is true about, although he does drink more than any human being I've ever seen in my life. So the question is like, I got to say that the edgiest joke of the entire thing coming from Tim Walz and Trump trying to find some sort of like crazy, crooked Hillary thing to say about Kamala. He tried Kamabla because mobs and wrote it. It's like, it's so fucking ham-handed, and he's like road testing shit. Talk about trying out material before, I thought he was a master of this shit.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I feel like he's always had some of that kind of open micer sort of energy to him too at his rallies. Because again, but his people they just love whatever he says. But he'll land on something sometimes, and then you'll see multiple clips of him talking about. He gets fixated on certain things that it's almost like they're like his bits that he likes or something. And sometimes it's stuff that it really panders to his people in a way that is effective or whatever. But then other times it's just crazy shit, like the whole would I rather be eaten by a shark or electrocuted in the water thing, like that type of stuff, and it's wild. I mean, dude, who knows what's going on?
I gotta say that, as far as like as a stand-up bit, he clearly thinks it's charming or funny or makes him look smart. There's one part of that story I think that is the most telling, which is where he goes, I brought this up to this guy, and the guy said, I've never been asked that before because I'm kind of, I'm really smart. I've never been asked. He's never been asked that question because it's fucking stupid.
Right.
Right? That's why.
Yeah.
The guy's like, oh, I've seen that person's face. So have you.
Right.
Right? You've seen somebody go, that's fun. I never thought about it.
Yeah. Right.
Right?
Yeah.
But he thinks it's a smart story and it's charming. People like to hear shit like this about me and what I do and my normal, this is my MTV Cribs / whatever, Real Housewives moment, or this is like a slice of The Apprentice backstage. But he tells that story. It has all the energy of a bit one of my stand-up friends keeps doing but doesn't work. They're like, God damn it, I know this is funny, and I love the idea, but I can't find the angle.
Yeah. Yes, it does. That's exactly the energy that it has. But yeah, I don't know. He does seem like he's like, I don't know. It feels, obviously I've hated him from the jump, but like, it feels like he's like, lost a step or whatever. Like even like in the Trump fashion, like the stuff that made him Trump in the first place.
The easy,
like he's not as good at that
the
stuff
easy
anymore.
low hoop, the kiddie hoop version of ball that he plays. Even then, he's missing the T-ball.
Exactly.
Right. Even at this point.
I mean, I'll get on like every now and then I'll check like the subreddit for conservatives or whatever, just to see what they're talking about, what they're on about. I checked see what they were saying about Tim Walz, the pick, and they were kind of split on it.
Sure.
One funny narrative they got going on right now is like they're talking about how much Kamala Harris clearly hates Jews because she didn't pick Shapiro, and it's like her husband's Jewish, B, it's you guys like, calling anti-Semitism. Like if she had picked him, you would have called him like, you've been calling him a globalist.
Oh my God.
But anyway, another thing that kept coming up was they were like, a lot of them were acting like, oh, this is great for us. This guy's super far left, ultra progressive lunatic. This isn't going to appeal to anybody in middle America. Right. Which I very much disagree with, just because he just seems like Mr. Middle America to me. But that's what they were saying. And then other people were saying like, yeah, it's just, the thing is like, they're doing so terribly. They being they're doing so bad. This should be an easy, walk-off election for us. But Trump won't just shut his mouth. Like it feels like we should be winning this thing so handily, but Trump just never shuts up. Trump won't shut his mouth. So, and I saw a lot of them saying that, basically being like, we should have this in the bag, but Trump just won't quit talking. And it's like, I feel like you wouldn't have seen hardly any of that in like 2016 or also 2020. It's like they still are with MAGA and the whole thing, and they want it to win. But it's like even some of them are like growing tired of Trump and his Trumpism.
Yeah, I mean it's when you've lost Scott Baio, I don't know if you saw that clip this morning, but like Scott Baio was on Fox. Hey, I'm just saying, we've got the Fonz, they got Chachi, whatever. I'll take those odds. But he was on there giving Trump debate advice against Kamala Harris, which I don't know if it, I just wrote, I was like, what's it like? First, you should start off with "Shut up, Joni," and then I don't know, something else. But in all seriousness, he was like, if he would just stay on policy, it'd be great. But then he starts going off on these tangents and losing. I'm like, holy shit! If he's noticing enough to say it on Fox, they're fucked. Right.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's why I think he's definitely like lost a step. It's not the same as it was before. Like they, even they are starting to notice and like cringe at some of the stuff that he says and does. And I don't see how that gets any better for him, over the course of that. Like, I mean, I feel like it's way more likely that it will continue to deteriorate. That interview at
he's not getting better.
The Black Journalist Conference was nightmarish, right? There will be more things like that over the coming month. Like it's going to get wild. I think. Like who knows how much more unhinged he's going to get, and I mean it's going to get crazy.
I think we're on a bullet train to Michael Jackson town. The area where he shows up in a space general outfit to go to court and stands on top of the car. You know what I mean? Where like Michael Jackson had lost his mind so much near the end that he was like, nobody around him could stop him from his basest instincts. And he was like a toddler. He was like, I want to wear my space general outfit. You can't. We're going to church. Take off your space general outfit. Put the suit on. It's your grandmother's birthday. We're going to church. I want to wear my space general outfit, right? And nothing could fucking stop him. And Trump is so entering that zone. Did you see the Aiden Ross interview?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I didn't watch the whole I saw clips from it, and I know that it happened. I did not watch the whole thing. No.
Fuck me.
Yeah,
So
that's
for those,
crazy. That I knew of that dude's existence, but I didn't know that much about him until this happened. And I started seeing the clips and stuff, and people posting other clips of him. And it's like the fact that that kid apparently has hundreds of thousands of followers, whatever, is one of the most disheartening facts I've come across in recent memory.
4.6 million subscribers on
that
YouTube.
Dude,
by the way, subscribe to both of us, everybody. He's got a YouTube channel. You're on mine. Subscribe for fuck's sake. This kid he sniffed Andrew Tate's seat.
Right.
When he got up. When they
he
did
is
a
rock
live
chewing stupid, man. Like, it's crazy. Like, did you see that clip of him trying to read the definition of fascist?
Fascist? Oh my fucking God.
Because he was like, he got mad because someone called him a fascist. He was like, I don't even know what that is, bro. And he like Googles it and he tries to read the definition. He gets every single word wrong. Like he can't read. Like he's that dumb. And this presidential candidate did an interview with him, and then his sidekick buddy is there wearing a shirt that's got Trump with a grill in his mouth on it, whatever. And then they give him a wrapped Cybertruck as a gift. And it's like, how stupid is
with a
this
picture
timeline?
of his post-assassination picture on it?
Right.
Like you want to get in the fuck. And by the way, it's on the passenger side, which is the only side that Trump's going to enter a car. He doesn't have a license. He can't drive a fucking vehicle. And then you give him an electric car, which is too expensive and doesn't go very far. From Elon Musk, the guy who loves him and he appreciates, but whose company wouldn't exist if it wasn't for Obama giving money to electric car companies during the bailout of 2009 rather. So that dude was fucking, that was so beautiful. And let me tell you why those things I find heartening. And then I want your most positive take on the next 90 days, 92 days or whatever it is. How you think this is going to roll out, your predictions, if you have any at all, and that kind of stuff. But the fact that Don Jr. is asking Barron who's hot and on the internet, and then setting up, going, oh, this guy likes Dad, so let's set up an interview. Who gives a fuck whether he's worth it or not? Let's just bring him in here. And you can see Trump cringing the shit out of it. He's like, normally I don't allow people in here to do this kind of a thing and whatever. He hates it all the way through. He's embarrassed, bored, tired, didn't want to do it. These fucking riffraff weirdos who are stand outside of Mar-a-Lago were allowed to come in as long as they stayed behind this fucking rope behind him. It was perfect. It was perfectly embarrassing and lame. And then they make him do the dance at the end. And he looks like Pat Robertson fucked a circus peanut because he's like, he's withering and getting to that kind of, I don't know what we're going to do, but it's not going to be good. You know, Pat Robertson phase. And like, he so wants to be on CNN, and the future only holds increasingly lame and psychotic and boring and self-involved Trump fart sniffers on the edges. Like next stop, Joey Pags' show. Next stop, he'll be on BitChute during Holocaust Denier Week. Like it's gonna suck. You're absolutely right. It's a downward spiral.
Right. Well, and that's because I believe that to be true. I just can't see them pulling it together. I don't see that getting any better. And it seems like the wheels are coming off over there at the exact same time that somehow, against all odds, the Democrats seem to have gotten it together for, first time in a long time.
Miraculously.
Yeah, right. I can't believe it, but I'm happy, and it's like everything they haven't feel like they've been making correct move after correct move. The momentum is building. The energy's good. The vibes are great. There's a lot of optimism. Right. Everything feels like it's swinging in the right direction. There's still a long way left to go. I'm sure there'll be bumps in the road or whatever, but I feel more positive now than I have in a long time. And I just feel like if the trends continue and both sides seem likely to me that they will, then I actually, I think it's going to be okay. I was worried about it for a long time, but right now I'm feeling good about it. So, yeah.
Yeah. I it's almost, you think it's helpful that we don't have that much time to fuck it up?
Yes, absolutely. That's been a major takeaway for me from this. It's like, because, a lot of European countries and stuff, their elections are like 90 or 100 days, the whole thing. They got laws against campaigning before that window and everything. And as an American, you just don't even realize that the way we do it for a year plus is not, not the way everybody
Yeah.
else does it. But this year is but yeah, one of my big takeaways is like, dude, we should make it to where this is how it always works. This should be how every election works, because people get so worn down and burnt out and just sick of it all. And this is just way more energetic and better. Yeah, I think we should always do it.
I guess, and if we did, even if the Democratic Party decided to hold their like the primary season, and like you don't get any Democratic Party support to run until a certain date, which is way later. Mm-hmm. Even that would keep people from, maybe an incumbent would have an edge in that situation. But since there's a term limits on the presidency anyways, it wouldn't be that big a problem, you'd have one cycle every 16 years, essentially, probably, where you'd have somebody who could kind of use the fact that they were in office to campaign for the next round. But if they were unpopular and push back against a primary group, but the rest of the time it'd be like, oh yeah, he's either not going to run again, or there's a real primarying happening, or we'll wait till the next round, that kind of thing. Right. But you're absolutely right. I think that's the plan. Trae Crowder will be in Dallas this weekend, and then he's going to be watching the convention like the rest of us, and then out in Des Moines, Iowa, and elsewhere. That's the next one on the 22nd. TraeCrowder.com, links to the book, the YouTube channel, the podcast are on there. Yeah, all that. What else am I missing?
Nothing. Yeah, you got it.
How many podcasts do you have? Is it 2?
I have 3. Well, unfortunately, 3. Yeah, 3. I'm a lunatic. Right.
You do. The first step is admitting you have a problem.
I know. Tell me about it. But yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. It was fun. And
yeah, man. Thanks so much.
Time. All right.
It's nice to talk shop about these kind of things. So be well.
All right.
See ya. Cheers. Off it goes, ladies and gentlemen. Trae Crowder, joining us. I feel like it's interesting talking to like other comics about just the mechanics of it. I hope that was interesting to you guys, because there's a lot of this idea that for a while it was our side of the aisle that was funny, because we were open to ideas, and we made fun of the people who were closed-minded and closed-hearted and politically closed down, right? And then there became what they decided to do was weaponize political correctness and blow it up into a thing where everybody fears to tread everywhere, because most jokes aren't funny. Most people, the majority of jokes aren't funny. Most comedians aren't funny. That's why there's only a few that make it. That's how it works. That's how it should work. But to borrow a phrase from the right, it's a meritocracy. And for a long time, they didn't realize that their jokes weren't working because they weren't funny, not because they were pissing off people or something like that, or people don't have, like, the audience was too smart for the room or whatever. Well, then dumb yourself down, man. You're there to perform for the room. I've always said that there are no bad crowds. It's up to me. People, any comic who's like, that was a tough crowd, is like a massage therapist saying, I can't do anything, you're too tense. It's like, shut up and get to rubbing, dum-dum. This is your job, right? So the nice thing is that once you push aside that you're not being racist or bigoted or sexist or anything like that, and you operate from that point of view, then your jokes can be seen from that point of view. You got a clear enough ethic amongst, of people knowing you. Then even when you do a joke that seems to be outside the lines, they know that you're doing it tongue in cheek or referential to how other comics are, for example. And I gotta say, like, according to JoJo from Jers, John Fugelsang and I walked to people from the Sexy Liberal New York show that they were very upset when John said that Jesus was a Palestinian, and then they thought my joke about women at Mar-a-Lago. I also do a men at Mar-a-Lago joke at the same time. I do jokes about the women of Mar-a-Lago, the men of Mar-a-Lago, both. I do both. That they thought my jokes about the women of Mar-a-Lago was me being sexist and misogynist, and so they left. And I would say it's probably best, because they were bumming out the people around them. That said, overall, probably, I got to say, Yeah, maybe the biggest laugh I got of that show was the Women and Men of Mar-a-Lago piece that I did, right? So that should tell you something about the overall audience versus a couple people. That said, the last time I walked somebody from an audience before that was in San Diego at the Comedy Store, the La Jolla Comedy Store. This woman was so drunk, she literally thought that everything I was saying in character, if I was playing a redneck or something like that, or I was, to voice a person who I was presenting as misinformed, evil, wrong, bigoted, whatever, that when I would say a bigoted thing in character, that I was actually that bigoted person, right? And she was hammered. And I think the best part of it was she got up. Oh, that's right, Carl. You were at that show. That's right. You'll recall, Carl can back me up, that she even said why she was mad. And I and the entire audience were quite confused as to, other than the fact that she was drunk, why she wouldn't understand that I was characterizing these statements. And they weren't indeed the punchline. As a matter of fact, they were part of the setup to where I was going, but she left before I got there, which is up to her, vote with your feet. She ate shit walking out of the place. She got about 5 tables and fell into a bunch of people, landed in their laps. It was because at La Jolla Comedy Store, there's an aisle right in the center, and she was seated like second row to the right. Got up and was like, and just was complaining in drunk speak. And then she just started walking, and then it was kind of beautiful. I was very impressed with God's timing. How was Awesome Saturday? The whole show was, thank you, Francis. We had a great time. By the way, this is, I don't know if you know this, but since all you got to do is say it for it to be true, this has been, this morning, the greatest morning live stream in the history of live streams. It just has. I mean, I don't have to say morning. I'm just so that people know for the history books when this took place during the day. But this is indeed, Hal Sparks Megaworldwide is the greatest live stream that exists on the internet, period, end of story. We are the winner of the coveted Eddie Van Halen of live stream awards, which I gave to myself. I'm also, by the way, I don't know if you guys know this, but the live streams have gotten so amazingly good. I also won the Ian Malcolm Laugh Award award for best stream. It was given to me by an organization called Fun Actors Now. A fan gave it to me, but this is very coveted. And no one else gets this as well. I'm just saying it is the greatest ever, period. And we have a huge audience. And the only thing bigger than the audience that we have is the line outside in the internet. I don't know if you look behind you in the internet, you'll see. Some of you looked back, didn't you? If you look behind yourself in the internet, you'll see just millions of people waiting to get in to watch the live stream. Period. End of story. And now you know how Donald Trump created an empire. I mean, it obviously crashed and burned, but I will say that today's show was not brought to you by TurnLeftPack.org. We brought you TurnLeftPack.org. Today's show was not brought to you by TraeCrowder.com, a great source for all things Trae Crowder. No, we brought you TraeCrowder.com, a great source for all things Trae Crowder. Today's show was brought to you by The Kidney. And
the kidney has a very special place in the heart.
Oh, good. I was worried for a second. I was like, really? And then I was like, nah. And then I was like, okay. And then I was like, maybe not. Hard to say. And this afternoon show, regular time. Everything will be at the regular time. So please check it out. Like, subscribe, give a thumbs up, support the show. What else is the thing? Hold on, I have to find the... Yes, there we go. And yeah, 3 o'clock. Well, one more thing. What was it? Oh yeah. Hit that like, everybody, on your way out the door. Just give me a like. Come on. Come on. It's right there. And right next to it is where you subscribe. You can do that too. Or follow on the page that you're on. I'm just saying, if you're watching, on one of these other sites where you follow instead of subscribe, you can do that. Memberships are also. All right, I'm too pushing. I'm sorry. I apologize. Thank you guys for the super chats this morning. Really, really, really helpful. Bless you.